Hey guys, it's me, and we are doing something that I never thought I'd be able to do. I'm actually reviewing an episode of Weaponized that, as you know, because I mention it just to exhaust them, it's like one of my favorite shows, but another of my favorite shows on YouTube is Need to Know. So we've got Weaponized with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. Okay, this is their episode 28, which the link is below. First and foremost. Need to Know is Bryce Zabel and Ross Coulthart. Now, those four, I call them my dream team. So you can imagine my unbelievable excitement, or maybe you can't, but I'm telling you, I had unbelievable excitement. Oh, when I saw that these four were getting together to discuss the UAP hearing and have a roundtable discussion about their thoughts around it, next steps, some hypothesis ideas like about what's coming, what's really going on. And I hang on every word they say. Let's put it that way. Because separately, even these guys are, I mean, their credentials are amazing. And during the episode, Jeremy Corbell mentions that among the four of them, there's roughly 100 years of experience in the UFO realm, and it's amazing because like Jeremy considers himself new to it because he's only about 10 years in, which would make me like a newborn to it because I'm only about 5 years in. But the other guys, I mean, between George Knapp, who his first story came out when he was, I mean, this was back in, I think, 89. I think it was 89. If that's 36 years, I don't know. I don't do the math. I don't do math. 35, 36 years, whatever it was. But he mentioned that that was the first time he ever did a story on, a UFO story. And it just kind of went from there and grew and grew and grew. And I think of the four, I would say that Ross Coulthart is definitely the more evidence based believer because he is a believer, but he also is much more, I think, because of his perhaps, I mean, maybe because he's coming from a different um, area of the world, and the stories are different. Perhaps that come forward. I mean, he's from Australia. You never know. He's an investigative journalist. He's written a book called In Plain Sight, and I think that, I mean, Bryce Zabel is absolutely an all in. He's an all inner, and same with Jeremy, and I think George Knapp too to most I mean, to the most part. I think he's probably still with Ross Coulthart in the sense because they're both investigative journalists. I mean, so is Jeremy, but Jeremy's more of a filmmaker, I think, and he's got the mindset of I'll go get the evidence, I'll videotape it, or I'll get witnesses and stuff. So Ross and George are more about the stories and the people and these types of things that just round them out so nicely as a group. And to get them together, it was like it was incredible. I mean, I was sitting there hypnotized basically by every little thing that they said. They are literally, I don't know. I think they're encouraged by the UAP hearing. I'm giving you the summary up here, and then I'll tell you a couple of things that each of them said that I thought was noteworthy, and that if you didn't see the hearing, or if you didn't, which there's a million links out there for it, but this episode sort of gives you a good synopsis of like they pick out the real important stuff, right? The stuff that they want everyone to really have their takeaways of these items in particular. Okay, now I think that these four guys again. I mean, I'll say it a million times, but they're the best of the best in my opinion, and you won't find more honesty, more candor than these collection of men. I mean, and they really build each other up, but they also call each other out. They're really good about being accountable for what they say. They back up their shit, in other words, which I think is great. And I also just want to mention one thing that also Jeremy Corbell mentioned towards the end of the episode is that if this isn't the biggest I told you so moment for Bob Lazar, I don't know what is, because this since 1989, I believe it was, or 19, I think it was 1989 when he sought out George Knapp and they had the discussion about what is at Area 51. And he claimed to work on reverse engineering these crafts. And I mean, there's no disputing it now. There's nothing that you can say to change my mind or a lot of people's minds because it's out there now. Congress knows. Everyone knows now. There are retrieved crafts that had non-human intelligence pilots that they have access to. I don't know if any of them are living. They haven't said anything about that. But for the most part, I'm saying, like, Bob, you might want to gloat a little right now because you got a lot of shit from people and you still do. Oh, where's the proof? Where's the proof? The proof came out of your mouth as far as I'm concerned, because to me, what the hell did you have to gain by ever saying what you even came forward to say? You basically came forward with the same premise that David Grush came forward with, the whistleblower. He believed that the people had the right to know. So did you. So anyway, Jeremy brings that up. Now these four guys, I mean, moving into the beginning part of the episode, it was adorable the way they all recognize each other and say that there's such a kinship between them, in a friendship, in a respect and all that. And they had a cheers to just the fact that there was some disclosure and they were really glad to see what happened, transpire and stuff. So it was nice to see that. And, Jeremy sort of acted as the moderator to some degree. I don't think you can keep Jeremy down. He's one of those, he raises his hand during the episode because he wants to say so much. And I love that enthusiasm. And I think everyone's just used to it by now with him. I think Ross is still getting used to it, but he's such a hoot. So he, Jeremy actually and George were really the catalyst of what was behind getting this hearing kind of pulled together. Now, Ryan Graves wasn't, he was on his own. He did his own thing and he got himself to he wanted to be part of it. So that's fine. But David Grush and David Fravor were, Jeremy and George were pretty instrumental, especially Jeremy, in getting these three witnesses together for this hearing. And, there was a lot of pushback about, get this, having these three witnesses go under oath. There was pushback on that from some people in Congress, which Jeremy could not understand. Nobody wanted, why wouldn't you want them to be accountable for what they're about to tell you? So thankfully, that was a fight that Congress lost. No, these guys went under oath. They all wanted to go under oath, which is just another example of they're not lying to us. They're telling us their truth. And this it's above, to me, again, I say it, it's above reproach. All of what they said, all the witnesses said. So they talked about the fact that a lot of people kind of came and went during the hearing, and they were surprised to see even people who weren't part of the committee that they were speaking to, like Matt Gaetz was there and actually had, I hate saying anything good about him, but he did have some pretty valuable questions to ask and comments to make. So you can check that out. You'll probably be surprised as well. And Ross spoke to how emotional he felt for David Grush, because what happens is they built such a rapport. Because when David decided Ross would be the one he was going to finally come out and talk to. Now, Jeremy and George have known David probably close to 2 years now. And what had happened is I mean, Ross came forward and said he wanted to be a part of, because these guys, as I said, these four are friends and they all communicate with each other because they all think similarly about how to move forward with disclosure and stuff. And David decided he was going to talk to Ross, as you know from the News Nation interview he did. But Ross became very protective of him. um, he, as his source and as his, he felt responsible for anything that was going to happen to him, prior to this hearing, during the hearing, even somewhat after the hearing. He just feels a protective sort of vibe for him, which I understand. I get that. It makes a lot of sense. And he also just feels very strongly that David Grush is going to go down as he is right now, as just a tremendous patriot. And, you know, he thinks that he's just, he believes that a lot of other whistleblowers are still feeling out how David's coming forward has been interpreted by the people, by the public, by the Congress. And so far, so good. I mean, he's had his house broken into, he's had some threats, but that's to be expected. The house broken into thing, that's not to be expected. But like random tweets or whatever people do, there's stupid people everywhere. Ignorance is bliss, right? There's a lot of blissful people out there. But all in all, David Grush feels like he's glad he's very glad he came forward. And Ross hopes that in the future more whistleblowers will see what's happened and know that they're supported by a very wide reaching group like these guys, um, to make them feel safe to come forward and disclose this. And you know it's funny, um before they had the interview, before Ross and David Grush had their official interview, they did a mock interview at Bryce Zabel's house, having his son Jared Zabel be the film, because he's a filmmaker, had him filmed and stuff. And Bryce, he compares it to a hostage video because I guess when you play it back, it looks like that, but that's not public yet. And maybe someday down the road, David will feel comfortable having that shown. But right now, he doesn't want that piece, like basically it was like the practice run before a real interview, because he had never been in front of a camera or done an interview. So I thought that was actually adorable that he just had the practice run at his house and called it a hostage video. I thought that was I thought that was a riot. Anyway, it's just, I get a kick out of weird things, as you can imagine. But there was also questions from Jeremy to, like, he was asking George, like, do you think it's possible that Grush was a psyop plant, like, for disinformation? And of course, that's, it's always possible. I guess for the skeptics will hold on to that and will say, well, we still haven't seen a craft, so anything's possible. That's still possible. That he could still be, blowing smoke up our asses. I mean, I guess anything's possible, but I don't believe that. And I don't, none of these guys believe that, absolutely not. Um, but, they also talked about how that Congress now, and even in the Senate with Chuck Schumer's amendment to he brought forward. I mean, this is becoming, guys, it just, this is going to be the moment that we look back on. This changes everything. This changes everything. Everything that what we knew prior to this, we have now changed the way we have to look at these things, UFOs, UAPs, any reports of anything related to it, because now we know that it's possible and that they're real. And I'm here for all of it. I just want to say that. Definitely here for all of it. But Jeremy acting as the moderator, he sort of pushed Ross, asking about the possibility of Australia having these illegal retrieval programs um, that are clearly in the United States and probably in other parts of the world too. But Ross wouldn't go as far to say no. wouldn't say yes. What he did say is that there are Australians that he is aware of that are part of retrieval programs. Not necessarily in Australia, though. So that was an interesting distinction. And Jeremy really needled him, and Ross pushed back. This is what I say, there's a mutual respect between them, but they also kind of try to get as much as they can from one another. And Ross has a lot of great contacts, as does Jeremy and like George and Bryce too. But Bryce was getting, he's a filmmaker, producer, writer, and researcher and report and journalist, former journalist, but he gets a lot of feedback from skeptics. So a lot of people that he's had interaction with over the years, like whether it was making films with them or whatever, they were, saying negative things. So he was getting a lot of that he felt like he needed to explain. And that's just unfortunate because it's just such a waste of time. And Bryce does not have any doubts about what was said at the hearing. He wishes that, David didn't have to say so many times because he had his attorney right behind him. He had George, Jeremy, and then directly behind him, between Jeremy and George, was his attorney, Chuck. And he would say one word. If David Grush was asked a question, his um, his attorney would say one of two words, either no, and Grush would know not to answer it and would say, I can talk to you about that, but it would have to be offline in a skiff. And then he would say the word careful, meaning be very, very careful about the words you use because this is all going on record and you can't lie about anything and you don't want to mislead anybody. So he would have to be very careful. But those were the two words that George and Jeremy kept hearing the attorney say, just those two words, never at the same time. It was either one, it was either no or careful, which I thought was pretty interesting. Um, Jeremy feels like towards the end of the video, he talks about how this hearing kind of set the stage as an invitation to the truth finally. So again, we go back to hoping that more whistleblowers come forward. And these guys putting themselves out there, I think is just another way of saying, hey, if you have something to say, we're a safe place for you to come. We're going to listen to you. We're not going to doubt you. We're going to vet you, and we're going to do, our background checks on you. But we're here to listen. We're here to listen. And now you know that Congress is here to listen, and they want more information. So I think that basically sums up. I mean, there's other stuff. I don't want to, I know I've kind of gone into the weeds a little bit with this, but it was just such a fascinating roundtable. These guys, like I said, they bring up a lot of interesting, next step ideas that could be possibly coming down the pike. And it's like, I think Ross believes that there's going to be, more public and private here and revelations. He thinks that it's going to come from both sides. But I think in general, they think that these hearings there will be another one sooner rather than later because there's a lot of general interest. I mean, right now it's tough because headlines are about indictments for the former president, and that's sucking up all the oxygen in our country, really, which is unfortunate. The timing is interesting, though, I think, but also, you know, that's a mess that definitely needs to get addressed. And this is not something that can be called a mess. The UAP stuff isn't a mess. It's a mystery that just needs to keep, you just keep learning more and more and more, and we'll learn more as we go together. And, I think that you would really benefit from watching the Roundtable Weaponized episode 28. Again, the link's below. Going to probably check back in with you soon. And I hope until then that you are staying happy and healthy and stay weird and also take good care. Okay? Bye.